Right, hello and welcome to the Panachecast. This is Panache Software's LegalTech podcast, where we go through all the latest legal tech news and events and things like that. This is episode 16, and it's been a fairly quiet couple of weeks, I think. Yeah, it sounds like it. Sounds like a quiet couple of weeks. Yeah,
it is pretty quiet, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess everyone's on holiday at the moment, so that's what to expect. We have managed to dig out a couple of things. We've got a couple of articles. So a quick one from Legal IT Insider about Farrer and Co. And that's their lessons learned from shifting their infrastructure to Azure. Something we've talked about previously. We've got another report from law.com, which is about a new AI negotiation tool, which has come out. So we thought AI is always a buzzword in our news stuff. So we thought we'd talk about that as well. Yeah. And then we're also going to do a little more follow on about the LPM pricing that we started to cover last time, and another article about that. Yeah. But as always, I'm Peter Davis, and this is my co-host, Neil Pemberton.
Thank you. It's probably just as well, actually, that it's been a quiet week this week because, as you'll know, David Cameron's memoirs have come out, and so we've all had a tremendous opportunity to read those and catch up on what Dave's doing now.
I don't. Yeah, maybe no one's been reading those either.
I can't believe that. Why wouldn't you want to be reading all about David Cameron? Why? First of all, why wouldn't you be wanting to put loads of cash into David Cameron's pockets?
Yeah,
he is out of work now.
And why at this present time wouldn't you want to have more politics in your life? It's especially if you're in the UK. It's we just can't get enough of the politics at the moment.
Can't get enough of it.
Well, we're not very good at it, but
no, not enough time has passed since David Cameron has been Prime Minister for me to buy his memoirs. I've only read the highlights of them, in which, at least according to the BBC coverage of it, he is pointing the finger at, I think, pretty much everybody but himself, but for the current mess.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I mean, maybe that's a lesson to all of us, that if you have a mess, what you ought to do is just turn on your heel and leave, and then blame everybody else for it.
That has always been my strategy in anything. Is just blame anyone else but yourself.
If it works for him, I think it probably only works though if you get a book deal from someone. With at least 7 zeros at the end of it.
Yeah, that's the difficult thing. But yeah, politics is difficult to get away from in the UK at the moment. It's an all-encompassing thing. So. We keep banging on about it, but it's just something that it just keeps happening here. There seems to be no end to it. So.
No end. But if they're watching, and if Boris and David and so on are watching, they're free to call in. And as soon as they stop giving us stuff to talk about, then we'll stop talking about it, I guess.
Yeah, and if they've got any legal tech news, then we're happy to have it from them as well. Yeah,
well, I suppose there must be something in the legal the legal right to shut down Parliament for 2 weeks.
Yeah, so
the legalities of serving a Section 50 notice or whatever it is on the EU. Perhaps we should be covering more of it.
Maybe it's a hot topic. Yeah. But, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. In a couple of weeks, it might have all blown over and everything.
Yeah, it'll be fine. If not, what is it? 31st of October, and
everything should be fine.
Come the 1st of November, we'll be right back on course.
Otherwise, we won't be here because the power's gone off. But one of these situations is going to happen. Who knows?
Yes. You mean all that lovely French power that we're buying from EDF, E.ON, or German power, whoever.
Yes, they'll cut us off. But no, hopefully not. Hopefully you'll always be able to get access to the Panachecast.
Yeah.
That's all we can hope.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, so we're back again. As always, you can find us on YouTube or on most of the podcast providers. We're on out there. And as always, you can, if you want to support what we're doing, patreon.com/Panache Software is one of the best places to find us. As we provide all our content and stuff for free, but if you want to support anything we're doing, then just have a look on there, and there's details on there. But
and also if you want one of these or one of those, then that's where you get it from.
And we are.
First time ever, we've both come branded.
The marketing department has disciplined us, and we are now both corporate branded today, which is a first. So for all you viewers on YouTube, unfortunately for the audio listeners, they don't get to see the glorious Panache Software T-shirts. But for everyone else, if you're in the UK, you can see our double corporate branding.
But the brand is so well known that they know what it looks like anyway, Pete. Exactly. I wouldn't worry.
Yeah, it's one of those well-known ones now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, should we get going on our first our first topic?
Yeah, I'll read a few bits of this because it's more tech focused than it is strategy or legal focused, and so I'll read it and then ask you the questions about it.
Fair enough, that sounds good to me. Yeah.
So this is, as Pete said, from Legal IT Insider. The title is Farrer and Co. Lessons Learned from the Shift to IaaS in Azure. So that's not SaaS, but IaaS. How do you pronounce or AS? How do you pronounce that?
Who knows? It's so that's infrastructure as a service.
Yes, yeah.
There's lots of IaaS now, so it's infrastructure, platform as a service, software as a service. You can get everything as a service now. So
yeah, ironing as a service could be that, couldn't it?
Could be, yeah. We'll see.
IT director Neil Davison and head of IT systems Andy Beach, as well as Nick Martin, managing director of cloud consultancy Systems Up, are commented on there. That's referred to in this article. In November 2017, Legal IT Insider spoke to Davison and Martin about shifting Farrer's infrastructure to the cloud, and the plan was to move to the Microsoft Azure hybrid cloud platform and desk environment based on Office 365 and Windows 10. So first question is, what is a hybrid cloud platform?
Yes. Hybrid cloud is basically, we hear a lot about people moving to the cloud now, so you've got your software subscriptions in the cloud and things like that. Hybrid cloud basically means that you've got a mixture of on-premise solutions, you've got private cloud solutions, so those that are not shared to the wider world, and public cloud solutions. So if you're running something, I would assume you would class something. If you're running some of the Microsoft applications and things that are public facing to everyone, although you may just have your own logins to them, those are public cloud things because they support multiple users from different organizations. They're just segregated off into your own individual places. Private cloud is your own application that no one else has access to.
Okay.
And you quite often see that in new software as a service providers. They will provide a public cloud solution, which is often a shared solution, so is multi-tenant. Things like if you're signing up for applications, I was trying to think of then things like Salesforce, and stuff like that. They have one big public facing service which lots of people subscribe to. And you have your own logins to it. You only see your own data, but your data is alongside other people's in the cloud, but you only have access to your bit.
Okay.
So it's shared for everyone. Private cloud is specifically you have your own instance, only you can get to it.
Right.
Only you have login. And then of course on-premise means that's again is hosted potentially behind your firewall.
Okay.
So a private cloud solution would often be outside of your firewall, visible to the world, but you have your own independent instance of it.
Sure.
Whereas an on-premise is probably not visible to the outside world at all.
Okay.
So it's those three pillars basically: completely public facing, where you're in a shared environment; private, where you're on a private cloud facing environment; and then on-premise makes up the hybrid cloud.
Well, there you are. That sounds
probably still confusing for everyone, but
well, it sounds complicated enough to need a consultant to come and help you with it. So I don't blame them for doing that.
I'll put my rates in the video. Although you might not want to take them after that description, but who knows?
Well, especially after what we have to tell you on pricing, then Anyway, so they were doing this in 3 phases. Phase 1 was to instruct a systems integrator with Systems Up, which was their consultant. Phase 2, moved to Azure after completing due diligence and information gathering within the firm. We talk more about information gathering in a minute. Under this phase, the firm was to move to Exchange Online. That was the email online version that you were telling me about earlier.
Yeah, so a lot of people,
their emails and stuff.
Yeah, so a lot of people originally had their own Exchange servers. That's how people used to run it. Moving to Office 365 and stuff, you often take Exchange is hosted by Microsoft.
Yeah.
Again, a public cloud solution where you have your own Exchange server, but it's still hosted by Microsoft. So yeah, people have moved their on-premise Exchange servers to one normally provided. If you sign up for an Office 365 business package or an enterprise package, you'll often get email as part of that.
That's where our emails are going.
Yeah.
Phase 3, this was the desktop piece, and Davidson told Legal IT Insider back in 2017 that that's where they transform the way that they work. They're looking to build Windows 10 Office 2016 desktop next year, and we're looking at new hardware, which would have included the Surface Books, which we have here, and the firm would be using Skype and Business as part of Office 365. Then we get into some interesting comments. So this is from Martin. He says, from a sector point of view...
I think Martin's from Systems Up as well. He's the cloud consultancy, their partner in Systems Integrator partner.
Yeah.
In Azure, so external to the organisation. But
so this is a quote from him. From a sector point of view, there isn't another that has as tightly integrated applications as law firms. A law firm is underpinned by a set of interconnected applications, whether that is in finance and CRM and workflow or whatever it may be. It is more tightly integrated than any other sector. So take local government, where they have all sorts of streams for social care and highways and finance, and none of it is connected. But in legal, it's all tied in. There are some bits of that which I think we can probably agree with, and some bits of that which we might disagree with.
Yeah, I mean, it's a comment. When I was reading through this, I wasn't necessarily expecting to see something like that, because I would not assume that law firms are the pinnacle of integrated systems. I mean, you've got much more experience in that area than I have as to how law firms work. But for me, I've worked across numerous different organisations, from professional services to local government to charities, to other, even I think some legal firms as well. We've had dealings with in customisation side of way. And for me, I don't want to burst a bubble for the legal sector, but
you're going to.
But I'm going to, in that I don't think the legal sector is as tightly integrated as, or more tightly integrated than other sectors. I think they're exactly the same as every other sector, in that almost all sectors, their IT infrastructure and their systems integration is a bit of a mess. And don't take offence to that in the legal industry. I think that everyone is everywhere. It's just the way that it goes. Everyone, their IT infrastructure is built up of so many different applications over years and years, that you just end up in a situation of silos of information and interconnect. Some things are integrated, some things aren't. Some things are moving across by exports from Excel and all sorts of things. And I don't think that the legal industry is any better at that than anyone else. And where he's saying, that there's a lot of streams in local government that are not connected to each other. I've done a lot of work in local government where we were connecting up all these streams. So I don't think there's a separation between the legal industry and anyone else.
I would question also whether or not social care needs to be tied in with highways and finance, yes, but I mean those are probably just off the cuff remarks. But they are in some respects they will be entirely separate services and functions, and there is no need for them to be integrated. They're entirely different departments, in the same way that even if you were to have privately owned businesses performing different services, like a legal outfit and an accounting outfit or something of that sort, they might not be perfectly integrated. Certainly in my experience and in talking with former colleagues at different firms, in-house, other firms, that the number of applications used has never really gone down. The integration is improving, but it's not perfect. And I think that the future is that it still won't be perfect, and it'll probably be even more diverse, because everything that I think we've seen, most firms' approach to applications in the future is going to be several different stabs at software solutions. I mean, every incubator we see has got cohort after cohort after cohort with 10 entries into us, half a dozen maybe. Yeah. It's not going to get any more streamlined anytime soon, I don't think. So
no. So it's just a case of, we don't. I can understand the sentiment. We just don't think that there is that big distinction between the legal sector and other sectors. I think that all of them face exactly the same problems and have exactly the same issues. And from what I've seen from working across these, I can't see that one is a lot better than the other at this kind of thing. So,
no.
So we just weren't quite as sure on that one.
No.
But there's. It's a really interesting article where they really go into detail, and there's a couple of other bits in here as well, wasn't there? That were quite interesting. One of them that a decision was reached early on that rather than starting small, we'd have to go full fat from day one.
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of time and a lot of effort with the guys from Systems Up. So this is Beach. This is Andy Beach, who's the head of IT systems at Farrer & Co., saying they spent a lot of time and a lot of effort with the guys from System Up to understand our estate and where the challenges would be. And Davison, who was the IT director, wasn't he? He's saying it was a more resource intensive than we thought it would be, and you can tell when he says that this was a big deal in this move. And Beach continues that we knew it was going to be a monster project, but we have spent hours and hours whiteboarding and talking tech. And this is the thing. It's again, they decided to go full force into moving their whole infrastructure to Azure, which you may decide not to do that kind of thing. But I don't think that this should scare anyone off necessarily, but it's just to understand that this is a big project. And I've been involved in other projects recently where we've been upgrading systems and we're trying to get a handle on IT systems and how they're integrated. And there's so many hidden data warehouses throughout the organization and hidden applications that you do loads of work on something, and then at the last minute someone says, oh, by the way, have you thought about this application that's meant to get its information from here? And it's like, no one mentioned that to start with. And there's so much of these people. So spending that time up front and making time for that is probably the bigger thing. Just accepting that this is going to be a massive project. This is going to be a big thing. There's
a conflict, isn't there, between having a focus group of people who are driving it forward, which is 2 people from IT in this case, and there'll be a few users from within the various different departments and the managerial team. I'm sure on the one hand you have to have the focus in order to get anything done. On the other hand, if you don't include everybody, then you don't guarantee that you've captured everything. So that's difficult. I suspect that one of the reasons why things take longer is that as you expand the sphere from the focus group outward, everything just slows down as people start to chuck more ideas at you that no one's thought of. So there we are. But I have to say, I do applaud the idea of just taking the plunge and going for it. I like that. And I don't know if you remember, probably week 11, episode 11, maybe something of that order, where we're reading out somebody's list of 9 things to consider before you make a plunge into a new tech solution, or when you're examining your technology. Was number 4 or 5 or something was to say, avoid taking on the big, hairy, audacious challenges. These guys have just gone straight for the jugular, and that's what we recommended at the time. And I like that. Yeah, and I think that what this does is allows them to get after this project, they will have a much better handle of all the systems they use, all the integrations they need and require, and how that hangs together. If you do it piecemeal, bit by bit, every now and again, you lose a handle on that, and you've got a web of interconnected systems which you've half upgraded and half not and stuff. Doing something like this really gives you that understanding of what you're using and when. And one of the things they mentioned in there as well, which I didn't pull out initially, was that this was not done as a way of reducing costs. That wasn't their primary goal in this, but they have recognised quite a lot of cost savings
in doing this. So although that wasn't their ultimate goal in this, they have done that because they've been able to eliminate their own data centers and stuff, which when you come to upgrade them, there's a huge cost involved. Having it all in Azure and stuff means that doesn't matter to you. It's all bundled in the monthly payments to Microsoft. So they look after that tech side of thing.
Yeah.
So although they didn't do it as a cost saving, they have realised, and I think it was something significant. I think they were realising sort of £2 million worth of savings. So,
beautiful. I mean, absolutely glorious to have not had that as a one of your main aims, and to the side effect just to be, we've got £2 million extra in the bank, and the partners will be delighted.
Yeah. So again, have a read. The links are there. Have a read through the stuff. It's they talk about the problems they had. They talk about the issues they had with go live and realizing that they weren't going to be able to go live. It's kind of a warts and all thing. So it's a really interesting read up, and something that I think you should have a look at and take into account if you're thinking of doing this kind of thing as well.
Yeah. Well, I hope that everybody at Farrow's gets their Christmas dinner paid for them this year on that £2 million worth of saving.
Yeah.
Okay, Article 2 then. This is from law.com, an article by Frank Reddy. Pactum's AI Negotiator wants to make you an offer you can't refuse. This is Pactum, which is a new solution that we haven't heard of before. Dropped this week on Wednesday the concept of a new AI-powered negotiation tool designed to both eliminate some of the human drama that can stall renegotiations and free up company personnel to focus on the next big deal. Pactum is a startup backed by the founders of Skype and TransferWise, realized its first self-named tool on Wednesday. The solution puts artificial intelligence squarely in the pilot seat of vendor and service contract renegotiations, joining the pantheon of solutions and attempting to put a dent in some of the agreement-related tasks, log-jamming corporate to-do lists. That's a long-winded way of saying it's another AI tool.
It's another AI tool, yeah. I mean, we've spoken about the proliferation of calling everything AI and things like that, but we thought it was an interesting thing to pick up because, again, it is the launch of another tool.
Yeah.
And they talk about a couple of things in this article which we spoke about previously when it relates to AI.
Yeah.
Which are quite interesting.
This seems to have a slightly different spin to it, because my concern with AI solutions is that you're ultimately, I think people assume two things about AI. Number one is that eliminates the need for them to have any judgment and their jobs are at risk and all that sort of stuff, or that this AI tool is going to it's just going to sort everything out for them. And it's going to do that on the first day that you use it. And neither of those things, I think, could be further from the truth, at least for now. None of the AI tools that we know of really will work from day one without some degree of training. Yeah. And these guys aren't shying away from saying that. And, the human judgment aspect of things is critical to these things' success, because they have to be trained. And we said just before we started filming, didn't we, that I said, well, it's a bit like trying to teach a child. They don't know anything, and you have to train them to be able to make judgments and so on. Yeah,
and they discuss this in here, and one of the things they talk about is that the data that the tool uses. So it says the data the tool uses to understand what as such priorities and flows from what the priorities are in relation to the negotiation point of view, so what the firm is willing to accept on a negotiation point of view, that information flows from a variety of sources, including the company's contract management system or interviews with the client. So, these guys are going in and talking to the client and, understanding their business, what they're prepared to do, but also then taking information from a variety of sources throughout the business to train up the AI so that it knows how to negotiate contracts. As Neil was saying, this isn't something that you just buy off the shelf and it knows how to negotiate your contracts because it's artificial intelligence and can make that decisions. It can't do that. It needs to be fed that information. It needs to have that training done first, so that it then knows how to react to things.
What I like about this is somewhere in this article it refers to how it actually does it, and it is, I think it's offering suggestions as to what might fit in certain circumstances. So
I think that comes from here. It says, as for the vendor a client is negotiating with, they receive an email with a link to a chat function that reviews existing contract terms, explains the client's priorities with regards to a renegotiation, and proposes different trade-offs in the aim of finalising a deal.
Yeah. So that's good, because it obviously, over time, it will build up a bucket, if you like, I suppose, of options for you, hopefully from one extreme to the other and everything in between. Whether it gets clever enough to say how friendly those clauses are to one side or the other, who knows? But it feels a little bit to me like I mentioned to you before, the idea of typing into Google and then the predictive questioning, the predictive text aspect of things, where you type in world's tallest and it goes building and it knows what you're looking for or something.
Yeah.
It feels a bit like that, where you still have to make the judgment on what's coming, and you are the only one that's going to know what's right in the circumstances. But it's doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And actually, the way that sort of work has been done in the past is, if you get something back, and you're not 100% sure about it, what are your options?
Yeah.
Your options are make it up as you go along. Terrible idea normally. Go to a leading textbook in the in negotiation of banking facility documents or whatever, and spend the time reading the chapter. And I think by now most people are assuming that you just know what those clauses should say. Going to a colleague who may or may not be around, or may not have an answer, or may have a slightly biased view on certain things. So this is shortcutting all of that, which is quite nice. The other thing, what I'd like to know a bit more about, is how it actually manages this from a document coming in to a document going out. And they may not even do it in that way. They may use data transfer, as we've talked about, and as we would recommend, I think, over and above sending Word documents and out and then receiving them back and unpicking them. And also how it integrates with people on the other side of a transaction. Don't know if it does that yet, but it must do, I suppose. But I'm curious as to how that works. But the nice thing, or one of the nice things about it, is that it's going to encourage, as you said earlier, dialogue with clients. So between client and law firm. And then I think probably even within the clients, if you're dealing with a retailer of some sort, they'll have certain requirements for their leases. They'll have certain requirements for their licensing arrangements. They'll have certain requirements for deliveries. And, that isn't going to be known by one person. That's going to be known by plenty of people. So it gives you an opportunity to really integrate quite deeply with the people that you're working for, I suspect.
Yeah.
So I like it.
Yeah, it's good. And as you said, and one of the things they've said on there, like other AI solutions, the tool will continue to grow smarter over time. And that's one of the key things. These things will get better. Don't expect a silver bullet at the outset that's just going to do everything for you, but they will improve over time. So this was a really interesting, another AI tool out there that's doing, taking away some of the initial negotiation, some of the initial time savings from people doing it.
Yeah. Pactum. Yeah, never heard of them before, but great. That's one for us to look at in more detail. Okay, should we move on to item number 3?
Yep, I think which is a follow up on our series that we've been talking about, legal project management.
Yeah. Well, yes, we introduced the idea of pricing last time, and that follows on from scoping before. And there's lots of different bits to project management, and so this is really phase 2. And there's just a nice article that I found from Fred Esposito, who's Chief Operating Officer at Rivkin Radler LLP. And actually, I think we put a note to an article or a white paper rather that he wrote in 2016 in the last show. But we'll put the notes, the link rather, to his July update in this week's show. He's updating a lot of what he said back in 2016, but his 2016 article is introducing the idea of alternative fee arrangements. And I think he wrote that having seen a big transition from firms and their approach to pricing since 2008, when everything was in the doldrums, and how firms have gone at their pricing and tackled the pricing issues that they've had since then. And the overwhelming sort of consensus, I think, within that article is that firms have tended to not particularly understand their own economics particularly well, and that really their best way of differentiating themselves from the competition is based on price, which I think is a terrible way of doing it.
Yes.
I mean, it works in some ways for people like Walmart,
and
Amazon
and the big providers, and things like that.
It can work, and I think there are certain industries and there are certain examples of where pricing being the differential being on price alone has worked for some people, and they've gone on to great things. But by and large, it doesn't work for most people, I don't think.
I think if you're buying a product which is the same product at two different places, then certainly you're going to buy it where it's the cheapest.
Yeah,
that's going to be your key, and that's not always the case. People do like to buy stuff from local stores and things like that, and from local places that, because they want to support those businesses. But invariably, especially if you're buying something online, you'll just look to who's selling it the cheapest and buy it from there.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas for services, you probably don't want to just buy the cheapest one available, really.
Generally not a good idea. So this article talks about that and how firms approach it, and a couple of interesting figures which I wanted to bring up. So in 2016, there was... I look to the notes for the specifics of the survey, but one of the points that came out was that only 31% of firms that had been surveyed took a proactive approach to pricing, by which I think they mean, actually went out, reviewed it, tested the market, discussed with their clients, which means 69% were reactive. That's quite astonishing, but that was the 2016 figure. And I think more recently he's saying that the figure now that is proactive is only around a quarter, so 25% or thereabouts, which is obviously going in the wrong direction. Doesn't say why particularly, which would be interesting to know, but it's very easy just to react to pricing, I suppose. And if all is going well, and if profit's being made, it can be a challenge sometimes to go out and do that. But it's part of life and improvement, and doesn't seem to be happening an awful lot. A couple of key points that I wanted to say. So I mentioned earlier that he says leaders don't understand their own law firm economics. And then there's another line he says, leaders don't understand how much it costs to produce the billable hours, which is what we touched on briefly last week, where you will have a billable rate, and that's probably largely driven by the market, and it depends on your expertise in a particular area and many other factors. But generally speaking, everybody knows what their bill out rate is. Not everybody knows what their cost rate is, and that's an area where firms need to do more to educate their people on. And we'll go into that in much more detail in future, but that will also appear in our notes. We're hoping to have somebody come on the show and go through the economics of law firms and how you can judge pricing and cost and so on. And we'll put things like that in our notes, whereby when you're looking at the scoping exercise and you've set out what you're going to do, the next phase when you're talking about pricing, if you're doing a bottom-up version, is to say, okay, number of hours worked multiplied by the billable rate equals the revenue, if you like, assuming your bill gets paid. It doesn't tell you anything about the cost, and so one of the columns in that will need to be the cost of the person doing the work. And it's not a perfect science, I don't think, but we'll touch on that more. Another point that Fred makes is that firms need to look deeply at their write-offs and at the discounts that they give people over time, emphasizing the time thing. These things are cumulative and add up. And those, in addition to the poor time recording habits that people have, can lead to massive drops and loss in profits. It's something, again, it comes up all the time, and hopefully we'll touch on that when we have our guests on the show in future. The importance of time recording, how easy it is to get right. And we aren't necessarily talking about time recording with the concept of billing all of the time recorded to the client. We're talking about as a measure of your efficiency, which so the client may never even see and probably won't see the time recording narratives that you've put down.
But at least you have a handle on it.
Yeah, so you have a way of judging how important it is. And then another nice little quote where he mentions that a lot of firms they don't look to what the big wastes are in the law within their own practices and try and eliminate those. And I think that's what he's suggesting that firms do. what they tend to do is go and look for the latest AI tech solution that will make them look good and enable them to do more work. And they're coming at it with probably the wrong focus. It's to concentrate on the wastes. And he makes reference again to applying a Lean Six Sigma. I think we should probably run a Six Sigma course or introduction for people at some point in the future. But it links quite nicely because he's saying that the Six Sigma process is generating value by focusing on 3 areas: process improvement, project management, and pricing. So it fits neatly in with what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
And that also fits quite neatly with what we'd said a few weeks ago about that introduction to legal project management. I think in the first show that we did, episode 12, I think, where Mark Lasseter, who is an American-based attorney, had given some thought on speed versus quality versus price and so on. They all fit quite nicely together, so it's all leading to a much bigger picture for us. And I think for future shows and future notes, we will be putting quite a lot of work into the pricing side of things, because it is critical. And our own experience and your experience outside of what you do for Panache Software is that pricing something easy to get wrong, but it's not that difficult to get right either.
Yeah, we've had some experience from doing sort of consulting work for organisations where when we've been pitching for work and being asked to provide estimates on days and things like that, and estimates on costs, and provide quotations and things, there was always a tendency to worry that we were charging too much for things. There was always that thought of, can we get away with charging this? And there was a tendency quite often to look at these things and say, well, this is going to take, days and days of work, tens of days of work and things, and will the customer accept that in a quote? Shall we go in and say, it's going to require these many days, and because it's a large chunk of time, we're prepared to offer you some discounts here and there to lessen the blow. And the decision was actually made at the time, no, let's not do any of that. Let's just go in with what it's going to cost. This is our rate. This is what it's going to be. Because then you have 2 options. Either the client comes back and says, no, I'm not prepared to pay that much for it, in which case you can then go in and say, okay, well, maybe we can do something around that. Or like we said before in the previous pricing issue, maybe not discount it, but say, well, if that's too much, we can lessen the amount of work that's done effectively. So, okay, well, we'll shave off these bits and pieces to come in under the target rather than dropping the price.
Yeah.
Or the customer just says, that's fine. And is happy with it.
Ideal.
Which is the ideal solution. And quite often, I think that is what happens if you're providing a good service. If you're confident in the service you're providing and those things, go in and just say your price. Work out your price. Don't go in with, we can provide these discounts and stuff for you. Hold that back initially. And also, there's a lot of issues now, especially with we see it in the software industry, especially, where there is a race to the bottom on costing and stuff now. It's something that is problematic for people because, if you go to the App Store or something on your iPhone or on the Google Android store, the Play Store, you expect your apps to be free now.
Yeah.
Who pays for their apps and things like that? But what that does is causes a problem for startups and new developers and things, because these things cost money to make.
Yeah.
We will experience this in providing a subscription-based software solution where you might come in and say, well, okay, our software as a startup is going to cost you £100 a month, £150 a month, maybe even more.
Let's go with more.
£250 a month, £500 a month, something like that.
Yeah.
And someone will turn around and say, but we can get the entire Microsoft Office 365 suite for £60 a year.
Yes.
Why are we paying £200 a month for your software? And it's because Microsoft make billions a year Companies like Apple make billions. They can afford, because of the sheer numbers that they sell, can afford to discount these things. Whereas a new startup software company can't.
Yes. Yeah.
But the difference is you get in the quality of the service is where you are making up that ground. And the same goes for, a small law firm or something like that. You might not be able to undercut a bigger organization who can absorb discounts and costs and shift it around their business. But what you want to be doing is saying, no, this is our price of things, and we can charge that because this is the service you'll get from us.
Yeah.
You'll get a much more personalized, a much better service.
Yeah.
And that's where you should be aiming at, I think.
Absolutely. I agree. And if you do price based to win work and what can you expect at the other end of it? All you can really expect are customers that will judge you based on price, and they're not judging you on the quality. They're not judging you on anything else, and that is a recipe for disaster, I think, especially when you're talking about relationship services being provided and so on. Yeah, it's not a commodity product. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. And the only, the idea of the freemium model and all the rest of it, you can apply that to a degree, can't you, to win custom and whatnot. But it is difficult in law firms because every law firm is made up of its own individual little businesses. So every partner in a law firm is really running its own business. You have one partner in corporate who has a monster client and he wants somebody in employment to do a bit of work for them. He can try and put pressure on to say, could you do this for free? They're a really important client. Where does that leave the person in employment? It leaves them without the ability to meet their own figures if they're constantly doing work at the whim of other people for no money. So that's a very difficult one for law firms to get right. I think it's something that is offered very quickly, and it's very difficult to take back sometimes. So I'm hoping that we can cover all that sort of stuff when we have guests on in the near future, and a whole concept of pricing and maybe some strategy behind pricing. I think people will know the basics of the strategy behind pricing, the gold, silver and bronze approach to pricing, where the silver is really the most profitable and no one wants necessarily the gold. Well, some people will buy the gold, but nobody really wants the bronze one because it's just not fit for purpose. Everybody knows a little bit about all those things. They don't get applied that much, though, I don't think, in law firms. So maybe that will change.
Yeah.
So we'll come on to we'll keep doing that legal project management, and we'll touch more on pricing in the near future. As I say, particularly when we've had some guests on and some material to provide, we'll put the material on Patreon when it's available. Yeah.
What we'll do is we've discussed the legal project management stuff across multiple episodes so far. What I'll look to do and what we'll look to do is pull those out into individual little chunks, and we'll probably put those up on Patreon, at least initially, to say if you want to go directly to those and have those as separate chunks, we'll do that. So it's easier to find that information. I mean, with all of our podcasts and whether you're watching it on YouTube, whether you're watching, listening to the podcast and stuff, we always timestamp in the description, so you can jump directly to the bits you want. You can ignore some of the waffle if you want.
What waffle?
It's not a problem.
What was I going to say? Do we have waffles?
Waffle. That would be maybe that would get
next time.
People, yeah.
But yes, if you want to ignore the tremendous
politics talk and stuff like that, I don't blame you.
But the other thing is that we've got some sort of raw material to put up as well for people on the LPM stuff. So we'll deliver that in particularly on round scoping and pricing. And we'll add to it as time goes on, because as we have additional expertise come in and talk to us about those things, whether it's strategy or pricing or whatever, we'll add it on as quickly as we can. Okay, so should we finish with a couple of...
There's a couple of events we found,
So the first one is Legal Innovators, Friday the 11th of October. This is the ETC venues at 200 Aldersgate and St. Paul's. I don't know if that's the etc. venues, but anyway, it's ETC venues. The link will be in the notes
assuming
afterwards.
that's St Paul's in London.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Just in case,
Yeah, don't go to any other St Paul's.
No.
It's an event created by Artificial Lawyer, which I think is ultimately Richard Tromans, whose name is well known in the industry, and organised by Cosmonauts. There are going to be 40 speakers, 2 training sessions for executives, 280 plus industry leaders. And when I looked through the list of people going, you'll see representatives from all the Magic and Silver Circle firms there. So any startup companies, if you want to go along, their details will be on the notes. There are prices to be paid for the tickets, so have a look for that. And they still have speaking opportunities by the looks of the website anyway. And then the second one is Wednesday, the 16th of October. We've mentioned this a long time ago, but we're reminder now. This is Legal Geek. I don't think we need to say too much more about them because we've mentioned them a few times.
You should know Legal Geek by now.
Yeah, exactly. And if anyone wants to go to that, then the added bonus is that Pete and I will be there. So
if you needed more incentive to go, we will be there. And we're hoping to do a little bit of a mini show there as well, as we'll be looking around the show floor as everyone else is, listen to the speakers and things like that. And we're hoping to chat to a few people and if you want to be on camera, we can. We'd love to interview people and chat to you there. So
if you want to be in our Legal Geek special episode, then come and find us, and you have to consent to us interviewing you and all the rest of it. But we'll sort that out at the time. If you want to be more famous,
exactly
than anybody else, I think
the biggest legal tech podcast there is. I don't know if I can legally say that, but. Who knows?
Don't know. No idea.
No.
But well, I mean, as we keep saying, at any day now, we're expecting our contract with Netflix to come through. So you could be just internationally famous.
They could be.
Come on the show.
Yeah. Unlikely, but could be.
Possible. Anything is possible. So early bird tickets for that I think are gone, but there's still tickets available. So legalgeek.co/conference will get you to there.
Yeah. And it's a great event. The Legal Geek, Jimmy and the rest of the team put on a fantastic event. We've been a few years, and it's really good and a really good networking opportunity and loads of talks and things there. So if you can make it, go for that.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I mean, second show back after a prolonged absence, and we're back on pretty much on target. 47 minutes.
Just under 50 minutes. So we better cut it off there before we get too long again. But
exactly.
But as always, you can if you want to get in contact us at panachecast@panachesoftware.com. Go and find us on patreon.com/Panache Software. And as I say, we're on podcast providers, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube as well. Yep. So go and have a look, and hopefully we might see some people at some of these events.
And follow and subscribe.
Subscribe.
We need more
things. Yes.
There we are.
And, but until next time.
See you then.
We'll see you then. Thanks then.
Bye.
Bye.